So I've just completed week 1 of The Artist's Way. So I just wanted to film a little check-in video to see how I went this week. First off was doing the reading for week 1, which was called Recovering a Sense of Safety. So I underlined and starred a few things from the reading and the quotes that you find down the side. Some things that just stuck with me and I wanted to share them with you. So first off, one of our chief needs as creative beings is support. And I just thought that was so interesting because I had a teacher in my first year of uni who used to say that encouragement is the death of an actor, or artist. And I think for me personally, that couldn't be further from the truth. I find encouragement super supportive. So though that might work for some people, I don't think that's necessarily for everybody. And I think even those who thrive off criticism could always use a little bit of support. Next up, I had there, caught between the dream of action and the fear of failure, shadow artists are born. I think so many of us can relate to this one, where we have these huge dreams, but because they're so huge, we can't face the thought of not actually bringing them to fruition, and so therefore we'd rather not act. And so it's all about overcoming this failure and being able to act so that we can actually make progress with our art. Another one is very often audacity, not talent, makes one person an artist and another a shadow artist. And this one stuck with me because the word audacity is something that I used to have negative connotations with, but it's actually something that I want to embrace and have more of. In a society where conforming and not being too large is celebrated, it can be really hard to have the audacity to be yourself, to be different. Especially here in Australia, we have this thing called tall poppy syndrome, where for some reason we like to cut down people who are rising too far up instead of, supporting them, instead of being proud of them. We sort of think, oh, get off your high horse, One of the quotes down the side is, we have been taught to believe that negative equals realistic and positive equals unrealistic. I feel like that one just speaks for itself. And then finally, I had underlined, remember your artist is a child. And I think that's a really nice way to look at it, because think about the way you would treat a child. You would be kind and nurturing, and you would listen and be patient with a child. And I think that is exactly how we should be treating our inner artist, instead of criticizing, putting down, feeling frustrated with all of those things. So I'd just like to show my inner artist a bit of love. And what I just love about these spaces down the side is that there's space for you to jot your own thoughts down. And I actually did this. I just wrote, it's a little bit cheesy, but always try your best, but your best doesn't always have to be perfect. Because again, I think that the whole shadow artist concept, that perfectionism can sometimes hold you back or keep you just being a shadow artist because of that fear of failure again. Sometimes it's better to just do something that's not perfect than not doing anything at all. So after the reading, you've got these tasks that are like little homework tasks that they set you to do throughout the week. So I'll just go through them with you and then we can kind of reflect and see if I did all my tasks. So first up, we had the morning pages, and I've got my journal here that I did my morning pages in. Did I do my morning pages every day? Yes. Did I do them every morning? No. But I actually think that, again, releasing that perfectionism, I think it's better that, I do them and do my best rather than just go, oh, well, I wasn't able to do them this morning, so I won't do them at all. That being said, for week 2, I would really like to try and do them first thing in the morning before I even check my phone, because often the first thing in the morning, I'd wake up, I'd check my phone just to see what time it is, look at what I had on that day, see what messages I'd gotten overnight, and then suddenly my brain would already be filled with overthinking, apprehension about the day, and I'd really like to just do my morning pages with a blank slate. How did I find the morning pages? As I said in the last video, I'm used to journaling a lot, and so it wasn't too hard, although some days I did struggle a bit to fill up all 3 pages that you have to do, and I would just write, I'm not sure what to write next, but eventually something pops into your head. And I was trying not to use them in a way to just externalize my stress about the day and rather write down ideas I had, or the dream I had that night, or gratitude, or affirmations. And that was actually one of the things we had to do in order to heal that inner shadow artist, was write out some affirmations that were countering our blurts, which were like negative self-talk that would just like insert itself into your brain. So I'll go through a few of those with you now just as examples. But I have a blurt that often comes up for me, which is that I'm dumb or that I'm not smart, because I went to a very academic school, and so there was a lot of comparison to other students. The school really created that sort of competitive environment to really push us. And so for my counter affirmation for that blurt, I just simply had, I am smart. Though I still struggle to believe it. I think that smart can also come in many different forms, and just because I may not be traditionally academically smart doesn't mean I'm just dumb. Another one I had was that my writing style is cringe or cheesy. That's just come from comments people have made over the years that I've sort of internalized. But I have to remember, for all of those comments, there's been double the amount of positive comments about my art. And so I wrote down for my affirmation, I have a unique style I get to call my own. And that's come from when people have said, this is such a Maddie film. And I love that whether or not a Maddie film is for everyone, it's probably not, but it's for some people, and that's all that matters. Another blurt I had was from an old primary school teacher who said to me, you're not the star of the show anymore, after the musical that I was performing in had wrapped up. And for some reason I kind of just internalized that as feeling shame whenever I sort of received any accolades, because I didn't want people to think that I was, trying to be the star of the show or trying to act like I was better than other people, because I really wasn't. And so for that affirmation, I just wrote, I'm encouraged to take up space and be the star of the show. Because, you know, as artists, we really have to have the courage to put ourselves out there. And if we're scared of potential negative attention from people who are jealous, people who want to cut you down, like the tall poppy syndrome, then we're not going to get anywhere, and we're going to remain shadow artists. I had a friend right before an audition for a show back in school say to me, I don't think there's a role in this show for you. And a little bit of a weird thing to say, psychs you out a little bit right before you audition. And sometimes that blurt comes out whenever I don't want to put myself out there. I'll sort of try to justify, oh, well, this isn't for me, someone else will be better at this, and then I hold myself back. So I just simply wrote, there is always a place for my art, because again, though it might not be for everyone, there is always someone who will identify with your art and will take away something really important from it, because art is subjective. Another one I had was the whole starving artist complex, and so for that I just said, my art financially supports me and my family more than comfortably. And though it may not entirely yet, I didn't want to write my art will, because affirmations are all about it's already happening. So if I just keep saying that, we're going to manifest that. And then again, the one that, you know, you get, your friends will have real jobs, such as being a doctor and a lawyer. And for that, I just said, my career choice is valid, respected, and most importantly, I love it, and it makes me happy to be living my dream life. That's the affirmations and the blurts. Okay, so task 2, the artist date. I did go on an artist date. I did leave it to the last day of the week to do it. I did do a lot of creative outings that could be classified as artist dates throughout the week, but I never did them alone because I don't like going places by myself. Like I said in my last video, I knew the artist date would be a tricky one for me. And so on that last day, I just forced myself out of the house. I'm finally going on my artist date. I've decided to go to the beach. I just find that being at the beach, you're surrounded by the beautiful nature, and you can really just ground in the present moment, listening to the waves. So for week 2, I'm going to try and schedule that artist date in and make a plan for it so I'm not leaving it to the last minute. Task 3 was time travel. List 3 old enemies of your creative self-worth, and you created a little Monsters Hall of Fame. And so in my Monsters Hall of Fame, I had some of those people who contributed to those negative blurts, such as that primary school teacher, that uni teacher, family members, an old friend from school, not naming any names, but we all have them, you know, people that we may still see, people that we do love and care about, but just are monsters when it comes to our art. And so it's just finding a way to set boundaries with those monsters who you don't want to, you know, cut out of your life or can't cut out of your life. And so then task 4 was to select one horror story you had with one of these monsters and just to write it out. And so I did that, and it felt really cathartic to look after my inner artist like they're a child and just say, you're valid in feeling this. That wasn't a very nice thing that was said to you. It's not true. It's just that person's opinion, or maybe they were jealous, or maybe they were going through their own thing that day. It will be different for everyone. And so then task 5 was to write a letter to the editor in your defense. So it would be like, to whom it may concern, and then you can just vent and complain about that monster, which again was really cathartic, something that, you know, you would never actually say to someone, but you can just be like really mean and get it off your chest, and then it's done and you don't have to be like holding on to it anymore. Then task 6 was another time travel, which was to list old champions of your creative self-worth. And for my mentors, I had some old teachers, my partner, my mum, friends, people I looked up to, fellow creatives, anyone who'd really just encouraged me over the years and like left a lasting impact. And so then you had to find some of the compliments that those people had said to you in the past that again had stuck with you. And I'll just read one to you now that a mentor of mine, fellow creative collaborator, had texted me, and it saved the text just because it really lifts me up whenever I read back on it. I will watch everything you do. You've helped me so much. I've been invested since day one. You are a beautiful breath of fresh air. You will go far with your outlook. You are dedicated, passionate, strong-willed, and put everything into your craft. Though it can be hard to accept compliments a lot of the time, it's kind of like reading an affirmation, rereading something like that, reinforcing those positive self-beliefs. And so then task 7 was to like write a hypothetical letter to that person who had given you one of those compliments. And that was just really lovely to do, to again acknowledge it, to accept it, to just show your gratitude. It was really nice. Task 8 was called Imaginary Lives, which was where you had to write out other alternate lives you would lead in a different universe. And this was a really fun task. And the aim of this is to try and incorporate some of the elements of each of these lives into the life you live now. So some of my alternate lives were being more of a full-time traveler, like living abroad, experiencing the world. And I guess one of the reasons I don't do that as much in my current life is because I really do value my community. But in this life, I had community in all different places that I'd make and find. You know, I've always wanted to ski instruct, something I'd still really like to do at some point. Okay, then my next life was like a more family orientated life, because I'm someone who would love to have a kid one day, but for me at this point in my life anyway, my art is like coming first, and so I wouldn't really want to be having a kid if they were just going to be, you know, second on the rung to my art. And I just feel like, especially in this industry, you really have to establish yourself a bit before doing something like having a kid, because you want to be able to put time and energy into that kid, and you don't want to then resent your kid because you weren't able to put that time and energy into your art. But in this life, I wouldn't mind. I would just be able to put that time and energy into the kid, not care so much about me and myself and my noble art pursuit. My next life would be being more in touch with my spirituality. I'd be a yoga instructor or a psychic. I'd probably like write a book on my spiritual epiphanies, and I'd just be super zen and enlightened. Well, that would be my focus to be anyway. And I think it can be tricky sometimes to balance chasing after your dreams and then also being like, really zen, because one is very active and the other is a lot more surrendered. But again, there's definitely a balance you can find. Then my next life is to live out my farming dreams. As a kid, I always wanted to have a farm when I grew up because I love animals and I love nature. And so in this life, you know, I would just be somewhere far away from society, nice and secluded. You know, I'd ride horses, run through the fields, swim in the river, grow my own food. It's a little bit hard to do that while being in this industry, and also I don't have the money for a farm and animals, but I can definitely try and do a little bit more of that stuff in my current life. I can go horse riding, I can run through a field if I can find one. And so task 9 was the working with the affirmations and blurts. And so every morning after I would do my morning pages, I would just read over my affirmations to keep, you know, taking them like the way you would take a vitamin for your physical health. You got to read your affirmations to look after your mental health. Then task 10 was to take your artist for a walk. The two of you, a brisk walk can dramatically alter your consciousness. And so I actually realized that I could not find my, you know, that dongle adapter thing that you need to plug an SD card and a USB into the USB-C port. So instead of just like driving to the shops, I just walked to the shops, put my headphones on, nice sunny day out. And yeah, I did feel really good afterwards actually. So probably try and walk more often if I can. Plus it's good exercise. And when you're out and about, you just see things, people, places, and more content for your art. And finally, at the end of the chapter, at the end of week 1, there's the little check-in, and it just kind of asked if there were any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery. I think a big like theme for me this week had just been letting go of judgment from myself and towards other people as well, and also just not fearing judgment from others, not caring because it really doesn't matter, and just embracing yourself. Because, you know, the people that I find most attractive and interesting are the people who are just fully themselves. It doesn't matter like what that self looks like. If they're just like embodied and owning it, I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. And again, you might not be for everyone, just like your art might not be for everyone, but someone will vibe with your vibe. And that's the kind of people that you want to be around anyway. Kiki, say bye. Bye.